Hello everyone, my name is Aquayemi-Claude and welcome to this edition of a London Climate Action Week event, which is a virtual event. I am joined by two wonderful guest speakers who are professionally known within their own space of contributing when it comes to tech and also climate change. And yes, I will hand you over to both of them to introduce themselves.
Right, I'll go. Hello, everyone. My name is Luca Formichella. I'm an Italian student of politics, philosophy, and economics. I'm strongly passionate about climate diplomacy. I'm part of the World Food Forum Youth Assembly. I work at an organization called European Youth Network, and we have a climate branch. And I've been former member of the UNFCC's Youngo organization and currently member of the United Nations Development Program Youth for Climate. So I'm into diplomatic climate activism and climate policy making uh, through my work both as a university student and my uh, youth group's commitments.
All right. Good day, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Favor Grammy. Excuse me. My name is Favor Grammy. I am a graduate of chemical engineering by training, and currently serve as the programs director, Jomo Climate Change Initiative, where we focus on handling environmental and sustainability projects across Nigeria and Africa as a whole, mainly focused here. Majority of our work and our project is being done in Nigeria, Lagos, and across 5 states within the country, and also in some Western African countries. And we've carried our project across both locally and internationally. I've also served in various organizations like MCN, US, FSB, and just to mention a few. Heavily passionate about climate change and sustainability. Yes, and good development. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you to two of the speakers. And also, yes, if you would like to unmute and
Right.
introduce yourself, welcome.
Thank you so much. Hopefully, I'm audible. So, thank you. I'm Ashraf Nihal. I currently work with the High Commission for Grenada. That's a part of my day job. But more often in the climate side, I'm involved with the Commonwealth Youth Council's climate vertical, where I directly get access to work with the 56 countries in its climate ambitions, mitigation, adaptation. And that gives me a brain to see the climate challenges in different spaces, be it Caribbean, Africa, Asia, with a different spectrum, somewhere flood, somewhere hurricane. Altogether, the synergies are very different, and so is the challenges. Apparently, I'm also with the Children and Youth Major Group, where my domain of work is a bit unique, where I specialize in eco-faith, bringing faith as an agency to promote environmental stewardship as well as climate change. This has been something very close to my heart because I can see the results are acting in the right way. It's very spontaneous. It's something everyone can relate to, even a layman can understand when we connect climate change to something like faith, community, or just spiritual ethics and beliefs. So, yeah, that's in a holistic approach, everything about me and my journey with the climate trajectory. I'm very glad being here, even though we anticipated that the entire week is going to be tussle. But looks like now that we are speaking, the weather of London is getting very calm. So yeah, the direction is in the right way. Happy to hear more from my co-panelists today, for me. So that's everything from my end.
Well, thank you to our guest speakers who have given their introduction. Um, One of the key questions which has been shared, and any volunteers who would like to answer this question, in regards to tech and where we are with climate change, what would be the key indicators of what are your views on where the kind of fast pace of tech is going?
If the co-panelists agree, I can start. Um, okay. Currently, the majority of technology, from a student's perspective at least, I can see that through my studies and through my work in volunteer organizations, the direction isn't primarily isn't the best direction because most of technological innovation is still happening at the expense of climate instead of in uh, the service of climate. Perhaps the biggest highlight of this discourse is data centers. Data centers, it is estimated to consume in Italy, data centers in Italy are estimated to consume 1 to 2 million liters of water per hour of work. That is an incredible amount of water that could be distributed for agriculture, especially in the south, where Italy lacks um, water resources and actually experiences drought. In fact, the Water Exploitation Index, which is our main index to measure the human activity on water consumption, estimates that we're over the 20% limit that has been set. And despite that, there are data centers that are consuming large amounts of water to keep to keep the supercomputers cool enough so that the systems don't overheat, don't crash, and we can all use data. Now, I do not want to discredit data centers in general because we need them. Every time we open a social network, every time we open our Google Calendar, there is a data center somewhere that has stored that information. So the reality of tech is that perhaps it is not going in the right direction, but we cannot at the same time um, villainize technological innovation and the tech industry for for aggravating the climate crisis because it is not solely tech that that creates the climate crisis. In fact, nutrition and the entire agri-food system also has its very heavy impact on climate. So it's a double-edged sword. It can be used to harm, and perhaps, unfortunately, it is still cheaper to use water, for example, than other fluids to cool temperatures. But AI technology, it has a massive impact, massive positive impact, potentially on the amount of the amount of climate crisis, the amount of pollution that is created. In fact, that is very much a relevant question, and thank you for asking, because next week here in Rome, where I'm based, there is the Global Smart Farming Summit of the FAO. And that is specifically the question that will be addressed. So how can we relate? How can we use technology to become more efficient in what we need and do it in a way that harms the environment less and less, eventually net zero?
Thank you, Luca. And Graham, what would your view be on this question?
Vital
Graham,
point. You can't talk about,
then
am I audible, please? Yeah. So you can't talk about technological advancement in this age and time without including AI. It's literally impossible, right? Because with the offset AI is bringing to advancement, right, is just unprecedented, right? And like I said, as it relates to the climate, I think there are three major P's we like focusing on as climate advocates, right? People, right? The planet. Those two are vital P's while considering the involvement of technology with the climate advocacy, right? But things that were considered literally impossible 10 decades ago, mind bending breakthroughs are being achieved right now due to advanced technological advancement. And as he has rightfully said, is the function of implementation of these scientific breakthroughs to real-time problems that we face in our community. Because speaking about technology in itself has no utility except it's being effectively implemented to solve real-time problems that we face in our community, right? Because the market woman has no idea of what AI is, but their life is vastly affected by the current challenges we face, both as a society and as individuals, right? So in terms bringing it back to technology, right? There've never been more scientific breakthroughs in the from the angle of technology than there is right now. And the real discussion I feel should be how do we focus on converting technological breakthroughs to real-time day-to-day solution creation via implementation of these breakthroughs and advancements we see in the technological space. And that's my take on the topic, right?
Thank you very much for your response. And Astra, what would your view be on this question if you are still with us?
Yeah, I'm still there. Thanks. I believe like when we're talking about climate, it's also about clean energy, and clean energy is very integral to technological advancement. We cannot see it very different to it, but we meanwhile we also have to be mindful of the consequences. When I say the consequences, I mean like for every response that ChatGPT is making, the amount of movement, the amount of irrevocable paper or water that is going in wastage has to be considered. It cannot be one-sided. And just very hypothetical but very knockout example. Last year, the Conference of Parties COP30 that took place in Brazil, in the town of Belém, to just host that conference, the ecosystem, the urban development of the entire area, the small town in the heart of Amazon was altered. There was massive deforestation. There was houses constructed, and the town was not at all in capacity to host it. So when we talk about climate, when we talk about environment, that cannot come at the cost of it. While we are very mindful that okay, there is no scope without going forward with technical advancement like AI or just clean energy, we have to be mindful that it's coming at the right pace and consequence. It cannot happen at this pace. This is very integral. I keep citing this example about COP30. But even otherwise, any conference taking place, imagine there are thousands of people traveling to that particular zone. And that keep aside the carbon footprint that lashes, that spikes up gradually, the entire ecosystem balance is disturbed. It's the same happening in Nairobi now. Now with Nairobi becoming the hub of UN and international conventions, Nairobi airport is happening to expand at the cost of Nairobi wildlife. And it's just not deforestation, it's also wildlife, it's human settlement. Everything is being altered. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. Technical advancement is very important to cater to climate change, but not at the adverse cost of climate.
Thank you so much. So, having in mind of all those shared inputs and the kind of vast looks on AI and tech and climate change, what would you say are the kind of fundamental elements of kind of keeping a balance when it comes to grassroots as well, having in mind that, we are looking at contingency plans? What would be your kind of insight on this? And what are the projects that are going on that you may be aware of? If you'd like to go first, Luca.
Um, so when we talk about balance, we have to understand that it is imperative that we do not go to those big tech CEOs or tech industries or whoever works in the technology industry and tell them you cannot innovate. You have to stop innovate because that is simply put unreachable. That simply cannot happen because innovation is part of human history. We've seen it in Great Britain with the Industrial Revolution. Yes, innovation is scary. Innovation is frightening because you don't know exactly what is going to happen, but it's a process that you cannot really halt. Um, Also, because the tech industry provides a lot of workforce, it provides thousands of jobs to families everywhere in the world, not just the big tech CEOs, but at the grassroots level, as you said, there are families who work in those industries. What you can say, however, is you need to innovate with regards to the environment. So what that means is technology, as stated by Ashraf, cannot go at the expense of the environment. So how? Well, that is key. Um, in my opinion, and this is an opinion shared as well in Youth for Climate, you technology and technological innovation and climate and the climate challenge cannot keep on going as two separate lines or two converging conflicting lines. Tech innovation needs to happen in favor of climate. So if we cannot stop that innovation, let us guide it towards climate action. For example, there is a project, a splendid project in my opinion, in Iceland that has already been implemented and is working. Um, it's still being tested in some areas, but it is working. It's basically it takes the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and solidifies it and gets stored in specific facilities. And to an extent, it can even be used as building blocks for warehouses and containers. So that you can see how that is a technological innovation because it's done through technology, but it is an innovation guided to fighting the climate crisis. At the grassroots level, education. We need to educate youth. We need to educate the next generation. And I know, and if following the climate week, the London Climate Action Week, the message is clear. We don't have a lot of time, and I completely agree. But if we neglect to educate the next generation, all that we do today is not going to have a lasting impact because we need to educate at the grassroots level the next generation of workers, of CEOs, of decision makers, of diplomats, of politicians, that whenever you think of something, whenever you think of a decision, of building something new, of anything really, even how you move yourself, the modality of transportation, that has an impact. And do we want to continue enriching ourselves, you know, uh, and innovating ourselves and having even more comfortable lives to a certain extent at the expense of the very planet we call home? Or do we want to start building a better life for us all? Because let us remember that we humans are not the only species on our planet. We are part of a great ecosystem. We're part of multiple ecosystems, and we are part of a shared world. Yes, we may be perhaps the most prominent species on Earth, but we're not the only one. We share the planet, so our action doesn't have impact on my garden, on my community, but it has an impact on 8 billion people plus however many billion of species and wildlife there is on this planet.
Iterate
Thank
the
you,
questions
Luca.
again.
But also feel that the projects have been shared that you might be aware of.
Sorry, can you take that again?
In regards to grassroots and the importance of grassroots with in mind of technology, what would be the element of the importance of grassroots while also the projects that you've seen that are showing the importance of grassroots?
So if I understand the question, you're asking what's the import of grassroots sensitization or grassroots sensitization in terms with technology affecting climate change. Is that
Yes,
right?
that is right.
Um, I remember stepping out for an outreach. Yes, I remember stepping out for an outreach with a colleague of mine for our team at Jumo Climate Change. And we got to somewhere in Ogun State, that's somewhere in Nigeria, the western part of Nigeria. And you'll be surprised, right, to know that there are still places on earth that doesn't know the definition of climate change, right, and the impact of climate change. So before even stepping into the concept of technology, we have to do a reintroduction of the concept of climate change and how it affects them. Because as much as there is a huge technological advancement to this regard, right, there is also the speed at which technology is advancing creates a laguna, right? There's a gap, a knowledge gap, wider than we currently anticipate, right? And that is scary because whether we like it or not, those persons, the millions of persons having no idea of what the concept of climate change is, are actively contributing to this climate problem, right? And beyond the scope of technology, that's why we are so passionate about advocacy where we're from, right? And I hear my fellow colleagues speaking about raising an eco-conscious generation. That has been the mantra, because I don't think I don't think we can achieve, right, 2030 if peradventure the concept of climate change and climate technology is not infused into our curricula at the basic level. I mean primary school, right? Call it primary school where we're from, right? Even from the nursery school, it should be infused into the curricula. And right now, that is not done yet. I think basically they only learn from about climate change from NGOs that come around once in like 2 months, right? And I don't think that is good enough. Speaking particularly from this part of the world where I come from, right? And that is on one end. Um, I also want to speak to um, industrialization, right? Industrialization. You see, I don't remember the other my colleague's name mentioning the downside of advancement in technology, being that technology is a two-edged sword. It could work in favor of climate change, depending on how we use it. Responsible use of technology could lead us to the attainment of our goal 2030. But if peradventure the benefit is not placed in the same bracket as the risks, we end up having a counterproductive adventure with technology. And I don't want to advertise anybody. I must say I have a lot of respect for the person they call Elon, right? The speed at which consume energy is unprecedented. And whether you like it or not, that contributes to a vast level of emission. You have the data centers producing massive amounts of information in milliseconds. That's energy. And that energy needs to have have a supply, right? And whether you like it or not, with the advancement it brings, it comes with its consequences. And when Elon says that he wants to drop data centers in space, I think that's very commendable, right? And that is going to be a big leap to humanity. But that is on one extreme end of the world. You see, that is a massive gap between what's that reality and what we experience in the local region of the world, where they don't have a concept of what climate change is to start with. So that's my take on this is bridging the knowledge gap across board from the very advanced systems to the rural areas that has no information around policies around the basic concept about what climate change should be. So thank you.
Thank you for that insight. So yeah, we'll hand over to Asaf and see what his input was as well and what's his view on this question.
Yeah. No, I'm in agreement to both of them. Uh, when we talk about climate, it shouldn't just be one-sided. It has to be largely related and connected to other larger issues, be it climate change, uh, connected to health, or be it connected to right to education. It cannot be seen in solitude, like it's just for environmental concern. It brings in economic as well as social challenges. So while we talk about the infrastructural gap, one has to be very mindful that climate is just not going to impact it alone. Social consequences, community consequences, and everything. And the energy transition at which like things are picking up. Just talking about my own city, London. Until 2 years back, we never felt like air condition was a necessity here. But this summer it looks like without that one cannot manage. So with all of these global conventions happening, the leadership talks and everything, daily livelihood still have some unsettled, unwarranted questions, and they demand a solution. Doesn't matter what happens in COP, what big outcomes come, how ambitious they sound, but if something like temperature rise is not being addressed, if the infrastructure is not equipped with it, I feel the larger elephant in the room is yet to be addressed, and that cannot happen without uh, governance meeting with community ideas. Everyone has to be taken into consideration. It cannot be in solitude, so it has to be a very collaborative and in everyone's interest avenue. So yeah, I feel like collaboration is the key. It has to go across sectors, it has to go across units, and it has to be in a holistic blueprint picture. Yeah, that's my sense. That's how I feel one can address it.
Thank you so much. And that leads us perfectly into the next question. Having in mind of all those inputs and shared insights, how are we able to meet the gaps when it comes to accessibility and also the importance of being innovative with accessibility? So if we go to Luca and see what his input is, and then we'll go round to the next speaker after. Thank you.
Okay. See, as someone who's worked with neurodivergent athletes, as I was a Special Olympics coach for neurodivergent athletes in athletics when I lived in Brussels, Belgium, I can tell you technology plays a huge part in accessibility, especially in this type of accessibility. Um, I want to focus for a little bit on this type of accessibility, so accessibility for people with disabilities, because technology has helped thousands, if not millions, of people uh, to integrate into society and to finally be represented, have a say, and live a life of dignity and opportunity. Obviously, the road is by no means finished. There is plenty of steps and of regulations and of improvements that must be made in this type of accessibility. But technology played a huge role in getting to where we are now, to improving to where we are now. We're by no means perfect, but we're definitely better than we were 50 or even 20 years ago, which is relatively a short time. The most simple example is with audio amplifying systems such as Amplifon, and now people with hearing deficits are capable of regaining their hearing and thus regaining access to a lot of opportunities and socializing. So technology is key for accessibility. Technology is at the forefront of the fight for accessibility, not just with people of disabilities, but in my opinion, we have a very strong tool in our phone, most of us actually, social media. See, social media, if used right, and unfortunately, there is still a large misuse of social media, but if used right, it can help us to create a sense of global citizenship. Um, So to mitigate, per se, discrimination, it could potentially help to mitigate discrimination, to mitigate differences, uh, and and when I say mitigate differences, I don't mean to forget differences and forget cultural heritage, but I mean to be more respectful and to cherish those differences. Um, So technology is huge in this respect of accessibility. When it regards to climate, in my opinion, technology, the more we utilize technology uh, for fighting climate change, the more it becomes accessible. Because right now, petrol, gas, natural gas, LNG, those are limited resources. Eventually, we are going to run out, and those are resources that are heavily weaponized. We've seen it. Every single one of us today in this room has at least heard of what the global implications of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz were. So the more we use technology for climate resilience, renewable energies, the more we become accessible for everybody, the more energy becomes accessible. For example, the development and uh, the reduction of costs of developing and implementing solar panels, which are still expensive, but when looking at the data from 10 years ago, you realize how it has become easier and more mass produced solar panels to the point where people are installing them in their own houses. And the cost of electricity has gone down for those houses that have been able to implement solar panels. There is less dependency on the instability of global affairs because we live in a period of instability. So the less we are dependent on non-renewable resource, the more the point of energy becomes less political and less a point of contingency and conflict, and more a point of accessibility and basic right for life. Because renewable energy is more reliant, it's more reliable. It's especially hydroelectric uh, energy, but we need to develop it because if we become a society which bases its energy production on renewable sources and not finite resources that need to be shipped for thousands of miles and kilometers and and are subject to global pressures and political schemes and political daily decision of world leaders, the more that energy becomes a right, the more it becomes a right, and the less it becomes something that is a privilege. Because there are still millions, if not almost a billion people living without electricity today. And in 2026, this is simply unacceptable because electricity has become uh, a tool of basic need because we have developed and we've innovated our society around technologies that need electricity. So energy, renewable energy, and the development of technologies that go in the direction of renewable energy make energy and electricity less of a privilege, less of an expensive privilege that worries us all when we look at the amount of taxes we have to pay on it, and the more it becomes a basic human right. So that is my take on it. Obviously, from going from the current situation to this ideal situation of less politicization of energy and less, you know, almost privatization of energy, there is obviously a long road ahead of us. And I must be honest, at my age and with my experience, I cannot definitely tell you this is exactly what we need to do. But I'm confident that it is youth's role. Youth need to be in the spaces where these decisions are made. Because youth are bold, we come up with innovative ideas. We have the forward thinking that we need because we don't just think of the present, but the fact that we are young intrinsically allows us to think of the present and the future. So youth need to be in those decision making processes and we need to earn our place there. Um, Yet unfortunately I cannot be able to just give you a list of steps to make because at this point in my professional career, I do not have the means to just be able to tell you exactly what the steps are.
No
There are
worries.
people
Thank
just
you.
like Graham who are much more experienced than I am, but this is the direction we need to go in.
Thank you for your detailed share, and I'll hand over to Graham. And yes, if we can keep it to a short period summary. But thank you very
My
much for your
apologies.
share, Luca. Graham.
I will just start with 3 points, right? For this to be achieved, I think we should build with sustainability in mind. How can we do this with, how can we produce the best output, releasing the least damage to our planet, right? Sustainability should be at the core of anything production, right? That's the first. And second, taking the first principle thinking, taking the first principle thinking in terms of for these innovations around sustainability that we currently have, how can we find ways to minimize cost of production and the cost of accessibility? That should be that recommended line of thought towards engineers, towards climate technological experts, right? How can we bring down the cost of accessibility to this technology, right? There's a technology I recently stumbled upon called the DAC, right? I think it's called air direct air control. I think what it does is that it saps out CO2 directly from the atmosphere, right? But I don't think that is readily available in the market for people to use, to infuse, to integrate such technology to their regular routine. It's not. So as a smart innovator, a young innovator, my thinking would be, how can I commercialize this? How can I take this to scale? I saw something amazing done by I think it's Joseph Nigatiru. Can't recall his name. One iPad project where he converted water ayat to plastics, and this water ayat, as much as it's prevalent there in his country Kenya, is massively prevalent here, right? So if Joseph is anywhere and he can stumble upon this video anywhere, I'm telling you that we could collaborate across board. From what I saw in the last video, he had about 34 employees. That same solution that he has profound, right, could be spread across Africa. whereby it gets more people employed tackling actual climate issues affecting the livelihood of locals, right? So getting importation of ideas and solutions via collaboration across individuals, or let's say systems of individuals across board, is also very vital if peradventure we are to succeed, right, in this climate action. Is a war against time. And I think we could actually make massive progress if we think in those lines. Thank you.
Thank you. And also, I think just because one of our guest speakers has got a bit of technical issues, I was going to also follow on to the question of, we'll come back to the question for our guest speaker, but I was also going to follow on to what would you feel is the best way of enabling growth in also relation to looking at safeguards of AI and modern technology? You can go first, Luca.
When we talk of artificial intelligence, there is a general skepticism, and to a certain extent, I can agree to it. But I feel like we have seen this skepticism before. We have seen it all the way back to the Industrial Revolution. We've seen it with the invention of internet. Um, yes, artificial intelligence can become dangerous, but anything that has to do with innovation and technology could potentially become dangerous. See, we are currently fighting fighting a conflict against the climate that we created in the first place. So when I hear that the climate crisis is something too big to fight, well, we were the main responsible parties in creating it. So if we create it, I'm confident that we have the ability to stop it. And to stop it, we need every tool at our disposal. And we have a tool that is extremely potent because it can process data, it can generate ideas, generate points in faster than any human could potentially do. And it is not perfect by any means, especially generative descriptive text AIs that are the most common, like ChatGPT or Gemini. They have massive flaws, but that capacity to integrate human innovation, human engineering, human brilliance, and then using AI to speed up what could be the process that would take us a year or two and speed it up to months, why preclude ourselves from using it? See, AI is a tool. Obviously, there always needs to be a human in the loop. AI cannot be left alone to make the decisions. But artificial intelligence is, we have trusted artificial intelligence in large areas of our life. Um, Modern warfare, for how atrocious it is and how condemnable it needs to be, is essentially based on artificial intelligence. The drone strikes that we hear about, the missiles that are being launched by either parties in any war, have chips with artificial intelligence in them. So we trust artificial intelligence for modern warfare, but we shouldn't trust it to fight climate. See, that's the point to me. We need to trust AI as a tool. It cannot obviously guide the fight against climate, but it is a tool at our disposal, and it is a very strong tool. So we need to use it. AI can help us develop technologies that are faster, more innovative, more precise, more efficient than any other technology previously developed. So if we use it in one area, why not use it in the other?
Thank you. And yes, I will repeat the question. Um, so the question is, in relation to growth and also safeguards of AI, how are we able to navigate? How are we able to navigate the importance of safeguarding AI and also growth for economic growth of all countries, so even if we're looking at the global south or the global north? Well, would you like me to reiterate the question?
Yeah, please.
Sure. So the question was, in relation to AI, how are we able to safeguard artificial intelligence and look at the policies of safeguarding it? And also, how are we able to look at the importance of growth, economic growth when it comes to technology and jobs?
All right. So I think policies play a very strong part in this, right? Strong regulatory policies, right, to ensure that uh, we are not just we are using technology as a tool, right, and we are not also using as a tool for damage than good, right? So regulation is, but not over regulation, right? Because if you over regulate, you can make the most of the technology, right? Technology regulation within healthy bounds would be vital, and also thinking of how it's playing out right now, where we use the infrastructure, for example. I call AI an infrastructure of AI as an infrastructure as a foundation for other technological advancement will help maintain the growth mindset. In for example, we see a new advancement called I saw it sometimes during my search around new agricultural innovation. The boundaryless neck gear where you put around cows, right? You regulate their movement across specific areas. That is an agricultural sort on AI, right? So if we could think in that term, AI is the foundation for building future technologies, then we could develop solutions that treat our problems rather than leveraging over leveraging on just infrastructure without building tangible, implementable solutions to solve a problem. Because I feel technology should solve problems, right? Human problems, and it takes also encouraging innovation. So there should be a strong effort around supporting innovators in terms of grants, particularly in the you find talent in the most amazing places. I mean, even in slums, right? They might not have the full technical know-how, right? But if peradventure they are exposed a little bit to technology, you see the ingenuity that pops out of them, right? So those avenues also should be created across board, not just in the advanced areas like the US, like in China, bringing it down to other I don't want developing countries, right? To spark that sense of innovation. It's very vital if we are to grow across board, closing down the margin we currently have. That'll be my 2 cents on the issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think having in mind of us being a thank you to both of our speakers for their share on this question, and having in mind that we are now above 1.5 and the kind of future of climate change. What is the best way of ensuring that youth participation is visible, and also the importance that when it comes to discussions, we are part of dynamic impact that's been acknowledged. I'll hand over to Luca.
Thank you very much. So obviously this is a very nuanced question because it also depends on how youth is defined in different territories. But in my experience and in my belief, there are four steps that we youth need to make to earn our seat at the table. And I want to start with a premise. We cannot expect a seat at the table just because we are young and because ideologically we should be there co-leading the decision that are going to affect our future. Why do I say that? Well, idealistically, it should be true. We need to be realistic. Those in the decision-making processes, those who sit at the helm of power, don't necessarily let go easily and don't necessarily love change because change is parallel to uncertainty. So we must earn and fight our way to the decision-making table. How do we do that? I think there are four pillars: prepare, action, persistence, credibility. And I'll start by prepare. You need to be as thoroughly prepared as possible. So you need to be researched. You need to know the data, the statistics. You need to know what is going on in your region, in the world. And how do you do that? Well, look at the news. May that be local news or global outlets. Um, Go to educate. So if accessible, um, education, studying uh, in the area you wish to enter. But also just have the opportunity, throw yourself whenever you see an opportunity, go for it, apply for it, um, and so be prepared in this sense. Action. Involve yourself in youth communities. Involve yourself in climate, not just climate, but since we're talking about climate opportunities for youth. Follow social media platforms. There are many accounts of youth for youth opportunities and people who do not gatekeep. So use social media to your advantage and act. May that be more in the policy making sphere or boots on the ground, but involve yourself. Um, build, on the ground, build experience, act. So don't just be a bystander. Involve yourself in the community. Then persist. Those opportunities that are offered by the many organizations, may that be, the United Nations, the World Food Forum, the African Union, the European Union, you will you will receive no. You will receive a lot of no. I've yesterday gotten a no for an internship. So you will get a lot of no's. Keep going. No's don't define, rejections don't define who you are, who you'll be, what you're going to achieve, and the value you can bring. You're going to get a lot of no's. Just keep going because eventually you're going to find where you're suited. You're going to get the yes. And once you start getting one yes, I promise you, it's one yes after the other. You need to breach. Once you breach, it becomes easier. So persist and then build credibility. Credibility is basically the combination of all three combined. So be ready, be prepared, know your stuff, know your statistics, have the on the have the experience, have local action community, involve yourself, be involved, don't be detached. Don't expect to be at the decision making table if you haven't worked for it or acted for it, and show that you're resilient. Show that you're persistent, you're determined, and you're going to keep going even if you hear no. Those three combined build credibility. And credibility, once you have it, it cannot be ignored. It is difficult to ignore. then we have the claim. Once we have all of these four, then we have the claim to the seat at the table. Only then can we demand the seat at the table. And most importantly, once we have it, once you have the seat at the table, make sure that you protect it, make sure that you fight for it, and make sure that you make the most of it. Co-lead, don't observe.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that detailed share and also response to the question. I'll hand over to Graham now, and we'll hear your input on this question.
All right. So first of all, I want to start off by commending you, right? Because you're one of those youth that decided to just do it, right? See, I don't, I don't, I don't like people dragging issues, right? If it's a problem to you, you don't tell me a disadvantage. I tell you have all you need to start. It's just it, right? For example, this this program as it is was an idea in your head for a while, but it would have remained an idea if you did not act on it. So, if peradventure we have more youth acting on that thing that troubles them, that problem in their community, telling themselves that they're not too young to make a contribution, then we have a better world, right? Nike will say, just do it. Once we start just doing it, once you have your why, and your why is strong enough, and your why is bigger than yourself, and your why is bigger than your ego, right? Because if it's not bigger than your ego, and you get a no, you'll be bruised, like you said, right? Because you're going to get no's. But if it's for yourself alone, it's enough to take you down. But if your why is bigger than you, right, and it's like a passion that won't let you sleep, just act on it. Just act on it. Just do it. It's not what you think it is. It's not that big. Because a funny phrase that said once a student is ready, the chance makes itself available. Once you're ready for an opportunity, you will see the opportunity. Right? Persistence is good, discipline is good, research is good. That's the part of the preparation phase. But with all this preparation, if you don't act on it, it's all going to be an idea in your head. We are not too young to start leading, but we have to start by leading ourselves, taking personal responsibility for our environment, taking personal responsibility for the change and the impact we want to see. It's enough to criticize your leaders. It's okay to hold them accountable. But if you're not contributing, you're no better, right? So to everyone that's in your head, you have you have a, it's time for you to act on it. Don't overthink it. Just start. Resources will come. Thank you. I think I'll just stop here. I think the point has been made.
Thank you so much, and thank you to both our speakers. Uh, Thank you to both of our speakers for their words of wisdom and also their share on that question. And I'd like to share another question that's been shared in regards to what would be one word or call to action that both of you would like to share with the wider audience in regards to the future and also where we are for today. And yeah, what would your call to action be? So I'll hand over to Graham first and then go back to Luca.
I'll start. Thank you so much. Thank you for this. I'll start with a quote I had while I was running for presidency in my school some years back. I said, so it's not originally mine, so please, disclaimer. So it says that the world and its resources are not inheritances from our fathers, but rather it's a loan from our children. So it's our responsibility to leave it better than we met it, right? So If there's anything you should remember at the end of this discussion, that in relationship to climate change, not because of yourself, it's a responsibility you owe to the next generation. You're learning engineering and sustainability not for yourself. You're doing it for your children yet unborn. The world, as I said, as I saw it, was may not be perfect, right? But we have the knowledge to pick out the flaws and make it just a little bit better. We're not asking you to build a better world, right? Sorry, the best perfect world. We're just asking, contribute to make it a little bit better. And if we could do that, I believe the world indeed will be a better place. Right. So the call to action, get involved.
Right. I would I would want to answer this question by citing one of the most influential figures in recent and general history, Mahatma Gandhi. Be the change you want to see in the world. So if you see a problem, if you see something that you would like to change, don't wait for others to address it. Don't just say, oh, we need to fix this issue. Go for it. Start fixing it. And by start fixing it, I don't mean fix global hunger, but do the 1%, the 0.5% that you can. So do what you can and work for what. So ask yourself, what moves me? What truly moves me in what I want to do? Don't just look at people on social media. Oh, he spoke at the United Nations. He must be cool. No, because that's a tool. So why would you want to speak at the United Nations? What moves you for it? And remember one thing. And this is also for myself as well, because I must remember sometimes. We are never too young to change the world. So with that in mind, what's stopping you? Go for it. Follow what drives you and go make this world a better place.
Thank you so much to both of our speakers and to everyone that's been watching. Thank you very much for joining and watching us. And do share this event to your communities and to the wider audience. This was an event on tech, climate, and also part of London Tech Week. I mean, London Tech Week and also London Climate Action Week as well, because we had London Tech Week a few weeks back. But yes, it's important that we're able to voice all the individuals and be able to talk about these important topics. So any initiative that you are feeling that you need to address, do the best of your abilities to collaborate, network, and continue the conversation. Thank you very much for myself, Aquayemi-Claude. My pronouns he, him, and also to our guest speaker, Luca, Graham, and also Ashraf, who joined us and shared his wonderful insights. In the meantime, this stream will end now, and till next time, do stay tuned for our next events and projects.